My best performing marketing system is a job well done. And by that, nothing performs better than if you have wowed an existing client, both retains that client. So now your acquisition costs are lower because you don't probably have to duplicate that. And they end up doing the selling for you. So they become your marketing system because they're referring you business on their own merit without you ever asking. So a job well done for sure. Best performing marketing tactic for sure. But if it comes to systems, I think going a layer underneath that, Candice, is going to be about my specific and spicy blend of curiosity, of empathy, of integrity, and professionalism. Like all of that are the things that make me who I am beyond the tangible deliverable that I'm providing. So if I've been hired to rewrite a website, just as an example, with the AI element, that has largely been commoditized. So if a client is still paying you thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars even to rewrite something that they could probably lean on Chatty for, just as an example, you got something special. You know that you're doing something that matters. You got to tap into what that is. So that's like my second level answer to that question. And then underneath that, if we're talking about actual systems or tools, if everything has to feed, okay, what does a job well done look like for me? The best marketing tools are the ones that support that help me perform at that level. So when I was thinking about Scrappy systems as a whole, and looking at my tools, I already have a pretty slim tech stack compared to most people. But the ones that I thought about for this particularly would involve Calendly, MailerLite, and Typeform. You've probably heard of all three or have used some of those, but those are three of the ones that I fancy quite the most. They do help me perform at the highest rate because almost every time someone has access to my Calendly links, like a call is scheduled. And that's a conversion just in terms of what that tool is designed to do. So like conversion rate is like super high when it comes to that. Almost every time I send that out, 99.9% of the time, so person's going to book it. So it's a great tool to have, like from a performance standpoint, probably the highest one. And then with MailerLite, I was looking at my open rates and they are around 49%. I have around 660 something people on my email list, and it's been that way for probably around, on average, up and down for the last year or so. And so I have that rate, and then the click-through rate changes depending on if I have a campaign or not. Sometimes I write emails with nothing to click on in them, so, that would be a 0% click-through rate. So I'm just looking at the open rates really. And then I know with VideoAsk, which is made by Typeform, like that helps me begin to build that know and trust factor with people because of the asynchronous exchange when they visit my website.
Okay. Can you explain a little bit about how it works, that it helps you do those underlying things of build the relationship, like you were saying?
Yeah, sure. So Calendly is going to be around, okay, finding those perfect times to meet between two or more parties and like how everything was before Calendly. Oh, Candace, you want to meet? Okay, boom. Now we got to find a time. We might send 10 emails like to meet virtually just to get to know one another, just as an example. But now it's just no, okay, you can see my calendar. I can make it available or whatever I want you to see around my calendar, and then you can pick what works for you. So that I love that solves the problem of finding the time to meet while not having to send all of those emails. So like time efficiency goes way up. And then if I can have those multiple event types in my account, oh, okay, Candace gets this type of calendar, or I'm only sending this out because she's this type of person. And it doesn't conflict with all of my other calendars. So I don't got to think about that. There's no scheduling conflicts anymore. There is no notification. It allows, I think, that part of meeting, of setting a designated point in time and in space to be like as effortless as possible on both parties. And I just love that tool like in that way. And I think and we talked about this before, I think this was last year, Candace, around like that side benefit of having something like Calendly is, well, it low key is also helping me grow my list because I have a question on there talking about, okay, just as a simple example, I appreciate you filling out this form, to thank you, I'd love to send you some value that you might find in your inbox. And is it okay to do that? Just as an example. And then if I do get that permission, it's boom, wow, you're growing my list. And that's not something that I thought about using that tool in that way. Like when I first started, that's like another kind of challenge it has of how do you ask someone to join your list in a way that feels right to them, but at the
Mm.
right point of that interaction, because you haven't met them yet. But if you've provided enough value, shown enough professionalism prior to the point of sending you the link, most of the time they're going to be okay with that.
I actually think that is one of the most genius pieces of marketing I have ever seen. And it's like you said, your calendar is one of the highest converting channels because people go there because they want to talk to you. And if you get a permission to add them to your list, it works. I'm not going to lie, I stole that tip from you last year, and it has been the main driver that's grown the Candid mailing list.
Oh,
Because I have so many events and so many meetings. It is how I do my business. I love the networking element of it. And so many people, they sign up. And if I ask them why, they're basically like, oh, I wanted to learn more before we got on a call
mm,
together. And it was so easy to learn more because you made it easy to just subscribe right there. That is really genius. And video,
so small. Yeah, I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna get to that. But to your point, that can't be understated because Candace, I don't even know if the folks at Calendly thought of using that tool in that way because you got to think about it. Depending on what that event type is that is in your Calendly account, you might have 5 questions that you're asking them to qualify them for why they're speaking with you. So in my example, if it's your equivalent, Candace, of a networking call, I'm asking like 3 different questions. I'm asking about like how they identify professionally, like solopreneur, side hustle, traditional employment, like what it is. And it's multiple choice. Obviously, it's already asking their name and email address. I'm asking for, okay, is there a place I can review their website or their LinkedIn page? Like, how can I connect with them? And then at the end of that, like, that's when I ask about the email list. And I'm always trying to think about like a spicy way to ask that question so that it doesn't feel like super clinical. Like, you want to subscribe to my list because that probably is not going to work on people and stuff these days. So I don't think anyone is going to want to join a list for the sake of joining it. So you got to think of something spicier than that or keep it conversational or light. But one way that you could do that is just if you have multiple questions on there, use it as almost like a thank you tool, like incentivizing them to say, thank you for giving me all this information. How about I send you my this 20-page guideline that I probably sell or something on my website, but you can get it for free just as an, so they're getting, it's like a lead magnet and you've qualified them through their questionnaire. You're providing them with value right there in the moment, and then you're growing your list.
I've actually heard that called a reverse lead magnet, where someone gives you their details and only afterwards you go, you know what, here's a gift for you. And it really delivers that like initial punch of like taste of value immediately. And they feel like they didn't have to do anything for it. And it doesn't feel like a slimy upsell, which sometimes it can feel like.
Right. Yeah. Scrappy systems, man. Scrappy systems. And we'll get into more of all of this where I think it all ties together, like how my tools help and how I think they can work for our viewers and listeners and stuff as well too. But anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. You were asking about video ask, you said?
Yes, yes. I'm very curious how you use Video Ask because I've heard of it. I haven't really figured out a good use case on how it can help
Ooh.
me with my marketing.
Ooh.
So I'm very curious how you use it.
Man, look, I'm the opposite as you. I can't think of ways not to use it. I can't think of ways. It's like I can find a gazillion. So my main one is right there on my website where I am essentially using it like, okay, imagine going to the store, Candace, and you're going to the clothing store to pick up a dress or a pair of jeans. And your interaction, it's a store that you've never been to before, but you're like, my friend told me about this place. I'm gonna go to the store. And if you have a person that greets you at the door to say, yeah, nice to meet you. What brings you in today? And you're like, I'm looking for a pair of jeans for this occasion and stuff, and they guide you to it. That's probably going to give you a good impression about that store rather than you arriving there at the door and the person is on their phone, like at the register or something like that. No greeting whatsoever, no help. Because here in the state, like they are notorious for when you do need their help with something, like you can't find an employee to help you to put on a pair of shoes. But when you're there, they are just window shopping. You can't get them off their back. They're popping up every few seconds. You need help. Do you need help? Blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I've looked at my video ads for my website in a very similar fashion. Like however a person landed there, my goal is to guide them through my site rather than leaving them to their own devices to find what they need to. This is even more extreme if you're not a solopreneur or you're a solopreneur that offers many different things. You got 5 different packages. You got 5 different ways for people to contact you. You got normal videos on your page, resources, blogs, etc. You don't know how a person lands there. But if you could, the very first thing that they see this nice welcoming video of all this enthusiasm and all of this energy and stuff at once. And I'm just like, hey, what's up? What brings you here? I'm Darnell. Nice to meet you. And by the way, what brings you here today? And I got a question and I got 5 different responses that you can click on. And depending on that, Candice, I'm guiding you logically with pre-recorded videos of where you can go to on that site. That's just one use case scenario. And I think it's the one, Candice, that most of us can relate to is if you have a pretty decent sized website or you offer multiple services, you have multiple lead magnets happening, you got a lot going on your website. If you could guide a person from when they visit you, from that very first interaction, they haven't seen video used in this way many times before, but I get to choose my own adventure because while I'm on Candice's website, I could be wanting to join her community. I could be wanting to have a discovery call with her. I could be wanting to get this product. True, I could look around through her links, but I'm telling you, we're in an attention deficit age of AI element where you really got to grab people's attention like within 5 seconds. But if you see a video, if I show up turned up like this, the likelihood of you not watching that for those 10 seconds, no matter what you do from that point on, because we can see the analytics of whether or not a person drops off or not, you're already changing the game. Most people are not using stuff in that way because I don't know if people would think, like you said, we might not have particular ways that we can use it. That's just one of them. I'm using it. That single video ask is both qualifying people. It is showing them where they can go to my website to find what they need quicker than leaving them to their own device. And I'm building significant know and trust factor instantaneously because you get to see my energy, my mannerisms. You can see whether or not I even believe the things that I'm saying right there on camera. You can see a face behind the brand. I'm not an AI bot. Like all of that is registering subconsciously in the visitor's mind, in my opinion. That's just one use case for that. I'm using it for surveys. I'm using it so like instead of sending a traditional survey, I can use video in my forms at the same time and say, yeah, the Scrappy Systems event. Did you like it? Like, well, and if you didn't, like, you can pick, we can set a meeting and stuff after the fact. You can respond to that video ask by video or audio yourself. It's really good for asynchronous communication, but it feels like you're right there with them. But you can use it at the end of an event. You can use it midway through an event. So many different cool use cases.
That is amazing. I'm even like thinking like the implications for like community onboarding. If you could build your onboarding with video ask, my brain's exploding. That is
I already started doing it. You already know I started doing it. I already started.
How do you use it in your onboarding?
I'm starting to now, but I'm so similar to you. It's going to be probably at the end of the course that people go to when they come into, at the end of the mini course. It will be something that is going to allow me to gain more insights from them as they enter the community, such as, just as an example, like my mini course, my welcome mini course doesn't cover like what brought them there or is designed to ask them that question. But if they went through the mini course, then at the end, I'm like, okay, what brought you here? And they can see me asking that question and I can create how I want them to respond to that. So I'm going to be using it essentially, Candice, for probably more insights at the point of like while they are feeling that fresh. So what brought you here? Did anyone refer you? What do you understand about this? How can Forge serve you? Just as an example, like some of those questions that we may traditionally ask in our versions of like our say hi space, like I can just do that through onboarding, but have it at the tail end. So that's how I plan to do it.
That's amazing. And I guess like you also mentioned earlier that like doing a good job is like the best performing marketing system. Doing a good job and then having something like Typeform at the end to help with testimonials also is a pretty good use of that tool. Do you use Is that what you use for testimonial, or is that how you use Typeform? How does Typeform come into your system?
Yeah, so Typeform comes in a couple of different ways, similar to VideoAsk, and now they seem to be blurring the lines between both of those products, which in my opinion is a good look. Anyway, but as two separate products, like I use it definitely at the end of experiences. I use Typeform probably more for that than at the beginning of an experience, but I could be using them both. I could. And now with the video element, it's just like I'm thinking about similar to what we're talking about now, like spicy ways to like how to introduce people to what I want them to know in my orbit relative to which business I'm doing. And then on the tail end, I'm trying to gather insights, but in a very conversational manner, because that's their big thing. And that's part of their brand is like, you don't want to have your surveys and quizzes be sterile or very robotic or anything. Like, how can you flavor it with your particular personality, your style of doing things, and then keep it light and conversational so that you don't always have to offer a $50 Amazon gift card for them to fill out your survey, just as an example, right? Because if your form could be good on its own merits, if it was well designed, showed a person a question at a time, if you can recall information earlier that they gave you from 5 questions ago using conditional logic, then Candice, it begins to feel like a real conversation. Like you can't the there's a window now just between both sides, and it's a clear window that you can see. The technology disappears and it feels like you're having a one-to-one conversation. So something as simple, in my opinion, Candice, is like showing you only one question at a time at the point that you're at it. And it can recall that, okay, Candice told me her name was Candice 5 questions ago. And at this particular point in the conversation, I feel like it's good to recall that because that's what I would do in a normal conversation with her. So just different things like that, but that's one way.
That's beautiful. I think I need to. It would be amazing. You should do. I think you have done a masterclass on Typeform before,
2 of
actually.
them. 2 of them. 2 of them so far. 2 of them so far.
I need to go and watch those because I think I've been a little bit like me and my little Notion form. Like I'm just like, this is very useful. It works, but it doesn't deliver the experience that you're talking about. And I think that's often underestimated, especially when you're a solopreneur and you're rushing. It's just like, I just need a form. I just want answers. And then no one fills in your forms and you don't get any data and you can't actually make any educated decisions. And you keep going in this spiral of, I don't know what they want. I'm going to guess. I don't know what they want because you don't really know how to ask for it. What made you get to a point where you realized like finding a tool like this is important? Did you have a bad experience that you thought you have to do this, or did you just fall into it by accident and start playing around?
More of the latter than the former, surprisingly, because I was like researching Typeform, and then I saw a product that said VideoAsk. I was like, "What's that about?" And then when I clicked on the page, I was like the angels were like the sky parted, and I felt like I heard angelic voices after that because I just immediately got it. Now, granted, I'm in branding anyway, so like when I just see good storytelling as a whole or good branding, I'm already a fan of it. Like I'm the person that's going to go to the winery and buy a wine because I like the design of the label, even if it tastes crappy. Like I still think that there's merit in someone designed this. Someone thinks that they have the best grapes and they decided to crush these grapes and put it in a bottle. I think there's merit in everything. So anyway, I'm very forgiving. So when I saw that it was just like asynchronous conversations, I was just like, man, I haven't seen that before. You're trying to meet with people, so to speak, who live all over the world in all these different time zones. And your website is like your 24/7 store. So I'm like, anything that I could do to multiple ways to use it, like I could just qualify people or I could just guide them towards certain products. But if you can combine them both, and now you start to get into like for me, Candice, it just immediately clicked. It was just like, at the end of the day, I'm trying to lower the trust barrier between myself and the visitor who came to my website, regardless of how they landed there or what they're there for. And lowering that trust barrier and making it simple for them to decide that Darnell is someone that I want to work with or someone that I don't in the least amount of time, I'm all about that. So the best marketing tool, which that's one of them, helps you parse out all of that so that if people join your list or they buy your product and they've came from something like a video ask, then you know that that's a high converting tool for you. And B, it is doing a lot of work for you that even can take Candice away from some of the stuff that you might ask traditionally in a discovery call. That's another good way to use it. Imagine like your discovery call process, the same questions that you usually get asked, or your same auditing experience for whatever you do as a solopreneur. For some of y'all on watching this. So imagine the same 10 questions that you always ask. But now you can automate that, but it's like having the automation element and the humanity like working in complete harmony together, because you can send that to them, and then if they want to have a subsequent call for you, like now you know that they're ultimately serious. Really, they just got a question that you didn't answer in that, and they're ready to spend money with you usually. So now you're saving more time. You can do that type of stuff at scale. And I can use it when I want to be like really fancy and stuff. So for example, if you were, I don't know, a representative at a larger company that I'm like really trying to get business and stuff from, like I would totally send you like a specific video ask that's calling you out by name and like really try to impress you, or even handle that conversation, Candice, like a lot asynchronously. I might answer questions that you're looking for a brand strategist for your particular client and stuff. And instead of me sending in a traditional resume, I might use that in addition to the resume, just say, I appreciate the opportunity, et cetera. And if you still got any questions, like you can respond, because you got to get spicy with this stuff, y'all. You got to be. Again, with this AI element, this age of AI is good for a lot of things, but that humanity side of things, and the more that you do that, and the more that you distinguish yourself, if that becomes rarer, it is more valuable because it is harder to get now. So the times that you do it, it really stands out.
I really love that. Especially as the small business owner, if you're working by yourself, like you don't have a massive budget. You have to find those spicy tricks that are unique, that make people go, oh, wow, I haven't seen that before. Or that actually, I feel connected. I've had so many people come to me saying they hate discovery calls because
Ooh. Are you talking about like your peers or clients hate them? Which
clients,
oh, clients. Oh, okay.
yes, people who are really into the consulting side hustling space and really trying to figure out how do they build their pipeline, they kind of want to avoid the discovery call, and that's almost impossible. So I think if you're not the kind of person who really likes to be on camera or like having an on the spot conversation, especially if it feels like a job interview, because I think sometimes they can. You probably need to change how you're doing discovery calls, but at least you can find tools that make it easier for you to get to your end goal rather than like just pushing through the pain constantly and maybe making you feel like a horrible experience.
1000%. If I was one of those people that you described, like that would probably be the way that I would be most serious about using a tool like that. To be fair, VideoAsk got competitors as well too, but they're my favorite, so that's the only one I'll talk about. But there are other companies that specialize, Candice, in asynchronous communication. So that's what that category is called. But for sure, if you don't like doing discovery calls, record you some snippets of the types of things that you just need to parse out from them in your own personality and style, such as how would you like me to rewrite your website, or do you already have copy there? And they can click on that and continue to provide that data. And then you can review that at your own convenience. But it's just like that allows you to scale. This way, Candice, you can just do the discovery call once technically, and the person isn't even on the other end. And then you can record those videos in completely different settings. You can say, I'm gonna record 3 questions right now. I'm gonna have some lunch, a wine, or a cigar, or something like that. Come back and record the other 3.
Your time, like
On your
really
time.
to suit your thing. That's amazing. And I want to really talk about the results, because I think it's one thing to say, yes, relationship building matters, but it's difficult to sometimes understand why building a relationship and going about using tools that optimize for that is important. Since you've been using these kinds of tools or adapting the tools to really help you build relationships, what are the like tangible results that you can say you're getting businesses?
Ooh. Yeah, that's a good question. I guess the tangible results. So I'm trying to think of how best to answer that question, because of course it depends on what the goal is. Because if the goal to grow my email list versus grow my clientele base, I'm going to be using probably a different tech stack for those things. But we'll go by the example of, okay, cash in hand, something has wowed a consumer or a client to the degree that they're ready to do business together. I think, yeah, the tangible results is probably going to be based off of, did these tools do what they needed to do, and how much interaction did I need to have with this client face to face in real time to convert them, to like completely win them, just as an example. So if it is, for instance, a cold client, so we have no connection together, they may have found me from a keyword online, so like the highest possible person to convert, and they wanted my most optimal package, and it only took them like VideoAsk and Calendly to do it. Like that's like the holy grail of it all, unless you offer a service where you actually need to customize things relative to what you learn from them. But even then, in my opinion, you could still gather that data asynchronously. But the thing is just like, it is all based on what my goals are at the time. And I do think our time is our most valuable asset. We all know that. So where we spend it is critical. So I need my tools to sell my professionalism, my style, my behavior, all of that asynchronously for me, and then get the client comfortable enough to feel like whatever next steps happen, that they are seamless, that they don't have to sign up to all of these additional accounts to do business with me. And it maybe feels like just one or two things. And ultimately, I think the highest converting things are the ones where the technology, for the most part, disappears, where it just feels like you're having a natural conversation with them and they feel comfortable working with you, but they can't tell that they've done all of these different steps. It just feels natural. And so that means asking for the credit card at the right point in that progress, at the right point in that process, where they feel that they've given you enough data to understand what they need, and you have given them enough of a comfort level to know that you're the right person to help them. And then you need to make it easier for them to do business with you. So I think it's actually the fewest amount of tools as possible. When I deploy my Calendly, because I think that was going on to early in this conversation, usually that is a high converting tool and stuff for me when it comes to my one-to-one projects. Usually if I'm on a discovery call with people, most of the time that's through inbound marketing in the first place. So they're aware that they need help, and they do want to work together, rather than me reaching out to them and just magically trying to win their business. So there's a connection point early, and I think those are what we call probably being in the warm network or referred business, which just helps with the process.
Cool. And interesting. I know it's not necessarily a time for question now, but Zakir just asked a question, which I'm going to spotlight. Was there a big difference in how many clients you got when you started using VideoAsk?
Yeah, I appreciate this question. And yeah, so big difference in how many clients I got when I started using it. Yeah, I would say so. And especially with the combination of those trainings that I did, because those were people who knew about VideoAsk or were familiar with it, but didn't know how to use that tool like you, Candice. There was like people that saw you and it was like, and they saw how I used the tool, like from my actual VideoAsk, and they're like, I want that. Can you help me out with a storytelling strategy for that? So it ended up becoming kind of a business line somewhat, from on a meta level of helping people who were interested in using the tool, but for their business, but they needed help setting it all up. But then for the people who don't identify as that, like some people that weren't familiar with the tool, but they just interacted with it. Yeah, I would say that it has been as high converting as referred businesses from people who might have just landed on it, say from my LinkedIn page, and we might have one or two connections between us. I'm always using my tools in interesting ways depending on the season of business that I'm in. And so sometimes I'm promoting certain things rather than others, or I'm highlighting them. When it comes to the brand strategy, working at high touch point stuff, it is a very tailored thing where there may be a discovery call needed, but I really do try to handle that asynchronously for the most part. But yeah, guys, like for sure, people have even responded, because that's another big thing that I teach about in that training is like people will end up mirroring the way that you interact with them. So when they see you using video or using audio, like people often respond that way, or they'll send you a video ask back and be like, I was looking for this service, or I have this need, but I don't see it covered here. But can you send me a quote, or can we catch up with a call, just as an example?
That. And I think also one thing that's worth noting is like something like that doesn't like success isn't always finding clients. Sometimes it is dissuading the wrong clients from coming forward. And I think the way you've described it, like having a very clear journey of guiding people to the services they need, if you can meet them and really help them go, actually, you don't solve my problem. You're probably saving yourself and them a lot of time in the long run. And I think that's honestly one of the most expensive things to buy back is your time. As far as tangible results, if you can win more time, that just is beautiful.
I think that you made an incredible point with that, about dissuading the people who aren't a good fit for you and not wasting anyone's time, which ironically could win you more business by that person that you weren't a perfect fit for in the future, just because like they have a better idea of what you do, even though it's not for them, it's for somebody that they do know. And so that has also happened in my line of work. It's like the fact that you have put something together that impresses people to that degree, and they say, man, Candice, I really like this, and I really like her, and I don't need what she has, but I could come across someone who does in my near future, and I'm going to remember this video ask that she put together. It could be that. And you always want to still leave a good impression for people, but to your point, dissuade the people who aren't a good fit for you. Even for yourself, like to save you the headache of working with a micromanager or a super meticulous person, or just someone who's just not values aligned with you. So these are ways to really have kind of the pre-discovery call before the discovery call in just one of those use cases.